What is up, fellas? We are back for another UFC predictions video. This time for UFC Fight Night, Burns versus Brady. Decent card this weekend, guys, after an off week. Let's jump right into it. Kicking us off at featherweight, Ziggy Mantis Ramaska versus Nathan Fletcher. Two guys from tough, interesting matchup. I'm going to be going with Ziggy Mantis Ramaska here over Nathan Fletcher. Nathan Fletcher's a guy who I think he's pretty good. He's got really good submissions. His striking is pretty middling. My biggest thing with this matchup in particular is the fact that I think Nathan Fletcher is a little bit too small uh, for Ziggy Mantis Ramaska. Ramaska, big dude for the division, 5'11", much more built, and I think on the feet he has some pretty distinct advantages in the way he strikes, range management wise. I think he'll be able to keep Nathan Fletcher at the end of his strikes with his kicks and his straight punches. And also, Nathan Fletcher is kind of a submission or bust kind of guy. A lot of his finishes or success in his fights is predominantly based off of him getting a submission, which I don't think he's going to have that easy of a time doing against Ramaska because I think Ramaska is pretty well rounded everywhere. Um, so yeah, I think this is just kind of a 50-50 matchup, and in those, I like to lean and pick the guy who's the underdog. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be going with Ziggy Mantis Ramaska. I think he's a better striker. I think he's a little bit more technical on the feet, and I think he can use his range management against a smaller guy like Nathan Fletcher, and probably win a decision. Maybe Nathan Fletcher is able to get Ramaska down and latch up a submission. It's entirely possible because he is really talented, but I'm going to go with the dog on this one, I think, fellas. Moving up to middleweight, Andre Petrosky versus Dylan Budka. Dylan Budka is a fraud. His last fight against Cesar Almeida was a absolute embarrassment. Now, I want to let this be known. Cesar Almeida, this. It's so. I'm gonna talk about some MMA math for a second. Dylan Budka is a guy with a good wrestling acumen, right? He's a good wrestler. That's what I thought when I picked him to beat Cesar Almeida. He couldn't do shit with Cesar Almeida. He couldn't take him down to save his life. And I was like, wow, my bad. Cesar Almeida must have some elite takedown defense. Until I saw Cesar Almeida taken down and controlled by Roman Kopylov. The sport makes no sense. Dylan Budka's a fake wrestler. There's no fucking way you can call yourself a wrestler and not take a guy down that Roman Kopylov is controlling for 10 minutes on the ground. So I have to go with Andre Petrosky, but the thing with Andre Petrosky is he knocked himself out on a guy's hip bone. This fight's a joke. I'm going with Andre Petrosky. I think he's got more power in his hands. I think he is a better striker. He has no chin, and from what I've seen, he's a better grappler. Uh, I gotta go with Petrosky over Dylan Budka. But knowing knowing the way MMA math works, Budka's gonna fucking wheel kick Andre Petrosky and knock him out in the first round. But I'm gonna go with Petrosky. Um, I think he'll submit Dylan Budka. Honestly. Moving up to women's strawweight, Jacqueline Amarim versus Vanessa Demopoulos, the robbery god. I'm going with Jacqueline Amarim over Vanessa Demopoulos. I think she's a better fighter everywhere, even on the feet. I think she's looking better. But my thing is, I think she'll have an easier time on the feet fighting Demopoulos because she has almost a 10-inch reach advantage. 8 inches of reach is fucking insane. And also in the grappling, not the strongest and most powerful chick in the world, but she does have a very good submission threat. So I think if she gets Demopoulos to the ground, I think she can latch up a sub and finish her. My only worry is if this fight goes to a decision, because it is genuinely impossible to win a decision against Vanessa Demopoulos. I like to point this out every single time that she has a unanimous decision win over Kanako Murata. And I just like to do this every single time Vanessa Demopoulos fights. Kanako Murata lost her job off of this fight. She got cut. She outstruck her and controlled her for 10 fucking minutes. She outstruck her, and she lost a unanimous decision. So if it goes the distance, guys, fear for your coin because you can't get a decision win over this bitch for some reason. I'm going with Jacqueline Emery because my chimp brain is telling me better fighter, 8 inches of reach, much younger, bigger lady, better skill set. She should win. She's go- she should win. She's gonna win. I hope she subs Demopulus. Don't let it go to the judges' scorecards, Emery, or you will lose the fight. But she should win. Moving up to featherweight, Yiza versus Gabriel Santos. This is a pretty sick fight. I'm curious to see how this plays out because Yiza is a guy who has a very padded record. He's a road to UFC guy, so a lot of the I don't want to say Chinese, but a lot of Chinese and like Japanese or Korean prospects a lot of the time that come up through the road to UFC, their records are a bit padded earlier on, but I think he's despite having a padded record, I think this guy's low key pretty good. He can push a hard pace, and he's got good grappling, and he's got good submission skills. And on the feet, he's not a complete zero. So I think he's a decent level, and I think he's UFC level. But Gabriel Santos, on the other hand, is a guy who has basically just been chucked into the deep end in his UFC career. Takes a fight on short notice against Lerone Murphy, takes him to a very competitive split decision, which I think is really impressive because Lerone Murphy, we haven't seen his ceiling yet. He's still climbing the featherweight rankings. I think he's top 10 now, something like that. Off the top of my head, I don't really know the featherweight rankings that well off the top of my head. But then Gabriel Santos, they give him David Onama, who I just feel like Gabriel Santos was winning that fight until he got caught by a big shot from Onama. But Onama's not bad either. Like he's a skilled fighter, a lot of power, good scrambles. So the level of competition definitely goes to Gabriel Santos, and I think he can beat Yiza in this fight. I think he's very good on the feet, and I think he's got very good grappling as well. I think he's got good grappling defense, and I don't see Yiza beating Gabriel Santos on the feet, but I could see Gabriel Santos beating Yiza on the grappling. So I gotta go with Gabriel Santos here over Yiza. I think he's just a little bit better, basically everywhere. Um, and I think he's fought the better competition. Because when Yiza fights a guy who's normally like decent or at least slightly decent, he tends to lose. Um, and I think Gabriel Santos is probably the best fighter he's ever fought. So I think Gabriel Santos here can win this fight. I think he'll probably win a decision because Yiza is a pretty tough dude. And he can push a high pace, and Gabriel Santos can do that as well. So I think Gabriel Santos' decision here is what I'm feeling, fellas. Moving up to flyweight, Felipe Dos Santos versus Andre Lima. This is a fucking banger, guys. This is probably the best fight on the card besides the main event. Um, I think this is going to be a really competitive stand-up war here, but I am going to be leaning Andre Lima over Felipe Dos Santos. I just think he's a more explosive and powerful striker, especially in the first like round and a half. I think he's more technical. I think he turns over his punches a lot better. He's a lot faster. He throws with more power. His combinations are better, at least early. Now, Felipe Dos Santos, very scrappy guy, very durable guy, and can push a pretty hard pace. Now, both of these guys are coming off of performances that I thought were quite shit. I'll pull this up for you guys so you can see. Andre Lima is coming off of a fight against Mitch Raposo. Mitch Raposo, I don't think, is very good at all, but he had a pretty competitive fight with Andre Lima, which I did not like to see. And Felipe Dos Santos arguably lost to Victor Altera Miriano. God, I can never say that guy's name. But that's not like a split decision I like because he arguably could have lost that fight. And Felipe Lima could have arguably lost to Mitch Raposo. So both of these guys are coming off pretty ugly performances. Felipe Dos Santos has fought the better level of competition because he debuted against Manel Kopp and had a pretty close fight with him. But I'm not going to let that Kopp performance disillusion me from how good I think this guy actually is. Because the Victor fight, I can't say his last name, so I'm just going to call him Victor, kind of made you look and kind of made you see and you're like, okay, he's not that good. He's not that good. and Andre Lima, kind of the same thing. They're both in kind of a similar position, in my opinion. But I think Andre Lima is the better striker. And I think this fight will take place on the feet. Maybe Felipe Dos Santos starts to build some momentum as the fight gets deeper. But I think early on, I think Andre Lima is going to be the faster, more powerful, and more technical striker. So I'm going to pick him to win. Um, Felipe Dos Santos is a very tough guy, so I think Andre Lima by decision. In a pretty close fight, maybe 29-28. Felipe Dos Santos gets the third round or something and starts to put it together. But yeah, I think that's how that fight will play out. Moving up to featherweight, Isaac Dolgarian versus Brennan Marotte. Um, guys, hot take. I'm going with Isaac Dolgarian. Is this the biggest favorite in UFC history? It might be. Minus 3,000 is fucking barbaric. Um, yeah, I'm going with Dolgarian. Uh, he beat C-Rod. Um, and yeah, he's an insanely good grappler. Insane takedowns, good submissions, really good ground and pound. He should beat Brennan Marotte. Moving up to 205, Ryan Spann versus Ovince St. Preux. Ovince St. Preux is older than your father. He is 41 years old and he is washed beyond comprehension. Ryan Spann is bad, but he should be able to put away this old man. I know Ovince St. Preux beat Kennedy Nzechukwu. That's fucking embarrassing for Kennedy Nzechukwu. But I think Ryan Spann will knock out Ovince St. Preux in like the first round. You know, Ryan Spann had a pretty competitive fight with Bogdan Guskov until he got caught. Bogdan Guskov is much levels above the danger level of Ovince St. Preux at 41 years old. Ryan Spann, way more powerful, way faster. He is dumb, but he can win this fight. He can submit him. He can knock him out. I'm going with Ryan Spann by TKO in like round one. I hopefully. Moving up to lightweight, Rong Zhu versus Chris Padilla. I'm going with Rong Zhu over Chris Padilla. Chris Padilla, decent fighter, regional guy largely, has a win over James Allentop. Like I said in 2 weeks ago's breakdown, I think that's a fluke. I don't think he beats that guy very often if they fight 10 times. Um, Rong Zhu, decent fighter, dangerous striker, a lot of power in his hands. I think he's got, off the top of my head, after looking at his stats, like 15 knockouts. Yeah, wow. Like, this guy's got some pop in his shots. He's got okay grappling as well, nothing crazy. He does have a weakness to the submission, so maybe Chris Padilla could latch up a sub, but I don't really think so. I think on the feet, I think Rong Zhu is just going to be able to tee off on Chris Padilla, and I think his takedown defense is okay enough. And Chris Padilla's lost to some real fucking bums on the regional circuit. And I think if Chris Padilla didn't get that, in my opinion, flukish win over Lontop, I think Rongzu would be like a minus 500, to be honest. So yeah, I'm going with Rongzu here. I think he's just a better striker. And I think he can TKO Chris Padilla in like rounds 1 or 2. Yeah. Moving up to lightweight, Trevor Peek versus Yanal Ashmuz. Um, I love Trevor Peek. The guy's an absolute goofball, but I'm going with Yanala Shmooze over Trevor Peek. Um, Ashmooze has really dangerous power, and he's a much more technical striker than Trevor Peek. Um, basically, that's it. Trevor Peek is an absolute blockhead who will sprint at you, throw standing hammer fists. You know, in his fight against Muhammad Yahya, which I believe it was that his most recent fight against Muhammad Yahya. I think it was, right? Oh no, Campbell. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, man, Trevor Peak sucks. um, yeah, I'm going with Yanala Shmooze. I just think Trevor Peak's a guy who gets hit too much, and Yanala Shmooze is a guy with huge power, and he's more of a technical striker. I don't think Trevor Peak's going to be able to get a takedown on Yanala Shmooze. I think Yanala Shmooze will be too strong. Um, and Yanala Shmooze is a really tough guy as well, so I don't see him getting like one punch KO by Trevor Peak. I think this is going to be a really scrappy stand up fight. And I think Yanala Shmooze is going to land the better shots just because I think he's the better striker. And I think he does have slightly more power. I would like to see Trevor Peak win. Um, but I just don't think he's going to. They have Peak as the favorite, which is surprising to me. But yeah, I'm going to go with Yanala Shmooze. I think he's going to be like the first guy to really crack Trevor Peak's chin. And I think he's going to do it in like rounds 2 or 3. I think he's going to do it late. I think he's going to accumulate some damage on Trevor Peek and then land a big shot and drop him. But yeah, I'm going with Yanala Shmooze by TKO. Moving up to men's flyweight, Matt Schnell versus Alessandro Costa. I'm going with Alessandro Costa, not because I think he's like the greatest fighter of all time. It's just because, a stiff gust of wind will send Matt Schnell into a seizure because his chin is made of paper mache. So, yeah, Alessandro Costa, well rounded guy, good kickboxing, decent grappling as well, good power in his hands. And if you have good power at flyweight, you are capable of sending Matt Schnell on a full expenses paid trip to the Shadow Realm. And Matt Schnell's not getting any younger at 34. He's a decent technical fighter. It's just his chin lets him down time and time again. If he had a good chin, maybe I would consider picking him. But I gotta go with Costa here. I think he's gonna chin Matt Schnell in like rounds 1 or 2 if he lands a good shot. Moving up to men's featherweight, Steve Garcia versus Kyle Nelson. This is kind of an interesting fight because Kyle Nelson has honestly put together a fucking good streak for himself. I used to be kind of a Kyle Nelson hater and not appreciator, but this is a pretty decent streak of fights he's been on. Lost to Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert's very technical and a very good kickboxer. That'll happen. Doo Ho Choi he should have lost to, but Doo Ho Choi looked good in his last fight. Blake Builder, not a horrible fighter, pretty well rounded. Fernando Padilla, decent win as well, and Bill Algeo KO in round 1. Like he's putting together a good streak for himself. But I think this is where it ends. I think Steve Garcia, I just think he's gonna fucking dog Kyle Nelson. I think he's gonna sprint straight into him like he does everybody. And I think they're gonna trade and they're gonna swang and bang. And I think Steve Garcia has more power in his hands. I think I don't know if he's a more technical striker, but I think he's got a better chin and that fucking 4-inch reach advantage and his output. I just think he's going to be able to catch Kyle Nelson with something. Kyle Nelson's a guy kind of likes to work the boxing, be a little bit more preserved and a little bit more technical. Steve Garcia is not going to let that happen. He does not let that happen to anybody. And Steve Garcia himself has put together a pretty decent streak as well. Shaylin Nurdenbeke, Chase Hooper, Mademoiselle Costa, and Sungwoo Choi. Sungwoo Choi, man. Each time I see his name, I'm like, this guy's still in the UFCs. I had to see. I feel bad for Choi, bro. But yeah, Steve Garcia, Kyle Nelson, both on pretty good streaks. I think Steve Garcia is the more dangerous striker, a little bit less technical, but he's the bigger dude, and I think he could force that ugly fight that he is so proficient in. And I think he will hurt Kyle Nelson more than Kyle Nelson will hurt him. And I think he will get himself a TKO win over Kyle Nelson in this fight in like rounds 1 or 2. Moving up to the co-main event, Jessica Andrade versus Natalia Silva. Guys, I'm going with Natalia Silva. I just think she's a better striker than Jessica Andrade. Maybe Andrade can work her grappling and get Natalia Silva to the ground. I think she's going to have a hard time doing that, though, because Natalia Silva's range management is really quite good. And I think she'll be able to keep Jessica Andrade at the end of her kicks. And Andrade is going to have a really hard time getting on the inside and landing her heavy shots with her short munchkin arms. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with Natalia Silva here. I think she'll probably win a decision against Jessica Andrade, just being the more proficient striker at range. Outside of Andrade getting Silva to the ground and beating her up in the grappling, I really don't see her winning unless she can, out of nowhere, develop a way to get on the inside and land a big shot, which she's not very great at. Yeah, I just see Natalia Silva coasting to a decision here over 3 rounds. Maybe Andrade gets her down in 1 round, gets a round, but I think largely Natalia Silva is the side here. And moving up to our welterweight main event, Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady. I'm really torn on this fight, actually, you guys. Because I want to pick Gilbert Burns because I think he's a better striker. I think he has more power. And I think he has the grappling defense and submission defense to really give a guy like Brady some problems. But there's intangibles on Gilbert Burns' side right now that I think kind of make me want to pick Sean Brady. And basically, I'll go into that. Gilbert Burns brutally finished in his last fight out a few months ago against Jack Della Maddalena. He was looking all right in that fight, but he did get brutally finished. Gilbert Burns is not getting any younger. He's 38 years old. And in his fight before the JDM fight, he lost to Bilal Muhammad in a 5-round decision where he got a very horrific trap and shoulder injury. He tore his trapezius, which is this muscle up here, and I believe he completely threw out his shoulder as well. So that bad injury at the age of 38, and then he just got brutally finished. I just like if this was a perfectly healthy like 35-year-old Gilbert Burns or something, 34-year-old Gilbert Burns, I think I would pick him over Sean Brady. But those intangibles just give me pause in picking him over Brady. Now there's some things on the Brady side that make me a little hesitant to pick him as well. His Bilal Muhammad performance was fucking horrible. I mean, how do you get TKO'd by Bilal Muhammad? Standing TKO'd, that's embarrassing. And it worries me because if Bilal Muhammad's got your bell fucking rung, if you eat an overhand from Gilbert Burns, like a left or something, whew, you're in for a fucking big storm, pal. Also, his Michael Chiesa performance was quite shit. He looked good against Kelvin Gastelum. I was really impressed with his performance against Kelvin Gastelum, but then I saw Kelvin Gastelum fight D-Rod, and despite even getting like the ability to miss weight against D-Rod, Kelvin Gastelum kind of looked like shit in that fight. I'm gonna be honest. So that win I don't think is the greatest. I'm gonna lean, and I don't trust Sean Brady's cardio that much either over 5 rounds. This is a hard fight for me. I'm very torn here. Honestly, guys, this might be stupid. Fortune favors the bold. I'm going to go with the dog. I'm going with Gilbert Burns over Sean Brady. He's old. He might very well be washed. He's a bit chinny, but he's a dog. And I don't think Sean Brady's a dog. I think Gilbert Burns has more power. I think he's a better striker. I think when push comes to shove and it gets into that third, fourth, and fifth round, if there's a guy I know who's going to be there grinding, trying to get that win, it's not going to be Sean Brady, I don't think, from what I've seen. So I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns, actually. Might be batshit insane, but I talked myself into it just now. So yeah, I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns. I think he's going to win a decision over Sean Brady. I think Sean Brady's going to melt in the last 3 rounds. Hot take? We'll see. Um, Also, I would just like Gilbert Burns to win because I like Burns. Um, yeah, that's it for this one, fellas. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I will catch you guys next time. See ya.